This year's rookie tight ends create a lot of curiosities in the fantasy football community beyond Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren. We're here to cover 3 popular ones and what you need to know about them this year and beyond. Coming to you live on Fantasy Now Plus and the Fins Talk Sports Network, this is Dynasty in 30. You're watching Dynasty in 30, only on Fantasy Now Plus. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dynasty in 30, happening every Saturday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern on Fantasy Now Plus, as well as the Fins Talk Sports Network. My name is Evan Sather, and co-hosting with me, as always, is Will Urian. Will, how are you today?
Doing great, Evan. How are you?
Good. Just glad we get to finally do this second episode as well. So we left off last week with your next rookie picks going into the second into the third round, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Yes, and that was when you selected Jalen Milroe and then Harold Fannin Jr. And we ran out of time before I could even get in my piece about Harold Fannin Jr., but those of you who follow us on YouTube, on Fantasy Now Plus YouTube channel, I did release a short that recommended everybody slow their roll on Harold Fannin Jr., and I wanted to talk about just a bit about him for the time that we do have, being that I'm a bit lower on Harold Fannin Jr. compared to a lot of Dynasty fanatics in the community, considering how excellent of a junior year he had at Bowling Green. So I'll get a bit into it on why I'm not as high. Well, first things first, he's a Cleveland Brown. Let's face facts. The Cleveland Browns are not known for throwing the football well. They got all these new quarterbacks. Some of them are old as, well, old man Joe Flacco. I'll try not to be too mean about him because he's a couple months older than me and he's still slinging it really well for his age. But then they went and drafted 2 quarterbacks in Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders, who Dylan Gabriel I think is absolutely awful, but we'll get into him a little bit later. So Harold Fannin Jr. in his junior year at Bowling Green had 117 catches off of 156 targets, 1,555 receiving yards, which, Will, if I'm not mistaken, that led the NCAA for all catches, which this came off of a 37.3% target share. So realistically, he was that Bowling Green offense. And in the NFL, it's unheard of to get a 37.3% target share in addition to 10 receiving touchdowns. So he's expected to start his NFL career behind David Njoku for as healthy as he can be, and a wide receiver room that's not exactly inspiring confidence in people between Jerry Jeudy and Deontay Johnson. Well, I'll let you get in some rebuttal here. So I'm not as high for those reasons on Harold. I don't think he has a path to success on the Browns. I don't think they have the right coaching staff to help him succeed. What do you have to say to what I think about him? Am I worrying for nothing?
So I will say I did do a piece that is up on the website about trimming down the rookie portfolio, the rookie tight end prospects. Harold Fannin, I will say, does not fit the profile that I went for when I was looking for a successful rookie profile. He's not quite as athletic from his combine performance as what I would normally look for. That being said, my profile doesn't hit every tight end that is successful in the NFL. It's just kind of trying to get you a talent pool to pick from that is going to have a super high rate of success. I think Harold Fannin Jr. is going to be one of the exceptions to this, where, like you said, 117 receptions, first in all of college football, 1,555 yards, first in all of college football. He had 873 yards after the catch, first in all of football. 34 missed tackles forced after receptions. I'll give you a hint. There's a theme here. First in the NCAA. You don't do that without kind of that minimum level of talent. So I'm really not as worried about his athleticism, even though he was at Bowling Green, not necessarily going up against the most talented opposition. I will 100% grant that. What I will say is, from a rookie tight end, I'm not looking for 117 catches and 1,500 yards. So, yes, I do think he's going to come in behind Njoku, but I do think we're going to see a switch from the Browns moving more into that 12 personnel grouping as more of a base. So I do think they're going to put both Njoku and Fannin out there quite a bit. So I'm not as worried about that. But I'm definitely willing to hear the rest of your argument here.
Yeah, so I've been hearing that argument a lot where people are saying, oh, he's going to play slot tight end, he's going to play power tight end, he's going to be in a bunch of 2 tight end formations out there, which in being that it's the Cleveland Browns, it's going to make sense because they're expected to run the ball a lot because it's not like their passing game has been anything spectacular over the last several seasons where they're just coming off a 2024 season where they were dead last in a lot of passing categories and they didn't add anybody impressive to their quarterback room. So that's another reason why I'm worried about him on the Cleveland Browns. But I read a lot of his weaknesses, his athleticism being one of them that you just mentioned, Will. I don't know how anybody cares about the NFL next-gen stats, but that puts him 8th in his athleticism score out of all the tight ends in the draft. So he was projected to go somewhere between the 3rd and the 4th round, and he ended up going as an early 3rd for the Browns, but he doesn't have a lot. I would say his biggest weakness when he's going out there for the pass is the press coverage. He struggles against the press coverage, which is not good when NFL teams know about this, and that's how you shut him down. And the Browns do not have a lot of great weapons as it is, or nor do they have quarterbacks that are polished for the NFL. You know, I'm talking about the rookies, of course. We're not talking about guys like Flacco who are just over the hill at this point. But in addition to that, I don't think he has yet the strength to prevent defenders from playing through his blocks, but I think that's a lot of the case for a lot of rookie tight ends where they're going to struggle with their blocks. A lot of his weaknesses can absolutely be developed in the NFL, but I just don't think the Browns have the personnel to do it. I think they're going to set him up to fail in the NFL unless another team that has amazing tight end coaches develop him into a superstar. And learning behind Njoku is a great start, but I just don't see Harold Fannin Jr. being this incredible fantasy darling that people say that he will be.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that is valid. I will kind of say I don't personally care about blocking ability. I think, you have your types that are, in that George Kittle mold that do everything well, including blocking to the point. I mean, if they got into some major injury issues out in San Francisco, maybe he even lines up at left tackle in an emergency. That is not Harold Fannin Jr. for sure. He is a receiving tight end purely. I think he was I believe it was under 5% in terms of pass block snaps. So, I mean, when he's on the field, he's running a route. He's going out trying to catch a pass. I don't know that dealing with press coverage is going to be all that much of a hindrance for a tight end. A lot of times they could run a move off of the line, just be off of the line in the slot. So I don't know how often they're really going to get that physical press coverage. I think they can put Njoku in those spots to kind of absorb that. Like you said, it does come down to, do we trust the coaching staff to realize that and actually work around it? But I trust that that's going to be common enough sense with a rookie tight end that, that should be in the plan already. I will say, despite his athleticism, do you want to venture a guess at his season max in college, his yards per route run from PFF?
I believe he was somewhere in the 13s, if I'm not mistaken.
Sorry, per route run.
Oh, that part I don't know.
So that he actually was up at 3.65 yards per route run. Some notable names here in college. Kyle Pitts, his best year was 3.29 yards per route run. George Kittle, 3.26. And one of our more recent ones is Brock Bowers, one of our generational prospects. He was at 3.24 yards per route run. So Fannin kind of blew them out of the water without the athleticism that those guys obviously have. So that's another one where I'm like, I think he just is one of those guys that knows how to play. Even if he's not the biggest, fastest, most physical specimen out there, I think he's got the finesse on some of his route running to actually get it done in space.
Yeah, and I don't hate the player, which I tried to make clear in my short to encouraging people to slow their roll on him, but it's just landing on the Cleveland Browns that I don't like because, yes, like you just said, David Njoku is likely going to be the guy deployed against like press coverage and having to do a lot of the pass blocking for years to come. But then Njoku I believe, is 28 going on 29, because I believe he entered the NFL at 21. And he's getting up there in age. He's taken quite the beating in his NFL career. We don't know how much longer he's going to be a Cleveland Brown. So when he's gone from the Browns, who's going to take his spot? Because I don't think Harold Fannin Jr. can take the Njoku role entirely. Like, he's just going to be like a Greg Olsen out there, where he's going to be out there to catch passes. But the Carolina Panthers at least had Cam Newton to support him with that. And Cam Newton has been a better quarterback than who the Browns have right now, as much as I hate to say it with how low his completion percentage was throughout his career.
I mean, Evan, I think you're onto something. Have the Browns called up Cam lately?
Boy, if they're listening to this episode, I think I gave away their secret to actually getting better at the passing game, but it's not looking good for this team.
No, I'm with you. Njoku is actually set to be a free agent after this year, so that will be something to watch. Like, rational coaching would dictate they will probably bring someone in to be that blocking tight end, which is my hope for them and for Fannin. I'm curious, though. So, it's not an ideal situation. It's not like he got put on a team with a head coach known for scheming to the tight end and scheming players open all the time. Like, Ben Johnson's one of the up-and-coming coaches. You got the Shanahan coaching tree that typically does a really good job of getting guys open. So where do you see Fannin in the rookie fantasy landscape?
As far as which part? I'm sorry.
Like where are you drafting him in Superflex drafts, let's say?
So Harold Fannin is somebody that I don't want to touch until the early third, late second at the very earliest. I do not want to reach on him at all, and that's exactly what I encourage to everybody. Don't go reaching on Harold Fannin. Take the talent and hope the Browns don't ruin him.
Yeah,
that's about all I can say on that. So let's move on to the next tight end here while we still have the time. Terrence Ferguson was a second-round draft pick for the Los Angeles Rams. It was pick number 14 in round number 2. I don't know in summary, I don't know what the Rams see in this guy, because he played for an Oregon Ducks team that ran the ball a lot, and Dylan Gabriel, I believe, was 13th in passing attempts in the NCAA last year. I don't know what the Rams see in this guy. He did not catch that many balls in his 3 years at Oregon, where his best season was his junior year in 12 games. He had 43 catches, 591 total receiving yards, which is 13.7 per reception, and he only caught 3 touchdown passes, which was his lowest compared to his sophomore and freshman year. So he had some incredible athleticism at the combine, where his production score, I mean, I don't know, like I said, I don't know how much we care about next-gen stats, but 7th in production score, 2nd in athleticism, so I think that's probably what the Rams were thinking on that. But honestly, with his 4.6 40-yard dash, 39-inch vertical, I don't know what they see in this guy, because his run blocking skills needs work, which, the Rams do like to run the ball with Kyren, so that's not going to get him a lot of playing time if he doesn't get better at that. He lacks quickness to elude the initial tackler after the catch, which, if I trust in Sean McVay's staff to develop that with him, but will he?
I mean, that I think is the question. I think we are viewing him pretty similarly, because that was definitely kind of the points that I had as well. Was I think I was looking it up, and I think his high was about a 13% catch share with 15% share of the receiving yards at Oregon. I mean, when I'm looking for tight ends, I want someone who a team relied on. If you're not making an impact in your college team against college wide receivers, whether or not those receivers do go on to the NFL, if you are an NFL level tight end talent, you should be garnering a target share, and your coaches should be saying, this guy is too good to not get the ball to. So I'm pretty worried, especially when guys are that athletic too. I mean, He is a big athletic guy, performed pretty well at the combine, but does have some stuff to improve on. I really get worried when these types don't produce in college, because they're playing against, at some levels, 18-year-old freshmen are sometimes some of their competition. So if you're that athletic and you're not producing against, kids, honestly, like, what are you going to do when you get to the NFL and are now going against fully grown men? That's really my biggest concern. And if you look at Oregon's wide receivers the past 2 years, I mean, his biggest impediment to leading that team in receiving, Troy Franklin, probably. I mean, and we all saw how that went in Denver. Hasn't done much at the NFL level yet. So I'm
And
pretty skeptical.
Yes, and I was just about to say I don't have much faith in Troy Franklin either on the Broncos. I think that's why they had to go out and draft Pat Bryant to see if they throw him in the mix. Does he fit that Michael Thomas mold? But I don't want to get too much on that tangent though. But I look at Terrence Ferguson's total receiving statistics in last year's season for the Oregon Ducks. He wasn't even anywhere near the top receiver for that team. He was the top tight end, but not really by a whole lot. That was a team that does not utilize the tight end much in the passing game. They had Tez Johnson, Trayshawn Holden, and Evan Stewart catching more balls than Ferguson. So unless it's the athleticism that Sean McVay likes, I don't know what the hell the Los Angeles Rams see in this guy.
Yeah, I agree. I do. Like you said, I mean, McVay obviously sees something in him. He's got some traits that I think can be helpful, but he has not yet put it together on the field. So I will be really curious. I think Terrence Ferguson is one of those guys who's like, yeah, he's got the ability, but hasn't put it together on the field. Putting him with a McVay type scheme and coaching staff, I mean, I think that is probably one of the places that he could succeed, but it's not a bet that I'm really wanting to make where he's coming off in drafts at this point. So
could you imagine if McVay drafted Harold Fannin Jr. over Terrence Ferguson? How incredible his stock would go up if he landed on the Rams. I'd be considering him like the next Brock Bowers.
I don't know that I would have been that high on him, but yeah, I mean, I would be looking right behind Colton Loveland. I mean, my tight end model had him as Harold Fannin Jr. as the clear second tight end. And I think factoring in landing spot, it would have only gotten even better. I probably would have been looking maybe as early as 111-ish in a super flex. Definitely early second for Fannin if he had gotten a better landing spot. So yeah, I mean, I'm willing to be open to seeing what happens with Terrence Ferguson, but I'm not expecting much. And I really want to see him prove it before I go spending any, significant capital into acquiring him.
I hope it was obvious that I was joking about the Brock Bowers comparison, considering that Fannin does struggle with blocking and he doesn't offer everything the way that Bowers does. But if anybody hasn't seen the fantasynowplus.com website, our rookie rankings are also on there. Me and Will both have our rookie rankings on there. We haven't updated ours in a little while. I haven't seen a need to do so yet. I'm waiting to see how they do at training camp. But right now, I have Harold Fannin Jr. as my tight end 5. I believe you have him as your tight end 2, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah. So again, it's coming down to his receiving production. His production score was just off the charts. And that really pulled his score up. And then, at the end of the day, an early third round pick is usually a pretty good sign for tight ends. So kind of all of that, all of the other factors that came in, he didn't do awful at the combine. It wasn't the performance that we were looking for, but it wasn't enough to really tank him. And yeah, so I mean, he graded out as, I want to say he was probably the 7th best tight end prospect out of the last about 7 or 8 years in terms of my metric that I calculate for tight ends. So, Brock Bowers was up there. No one's probably going to touch that for a while, but obviously we remember the hype that Kyle Pitts got. He's also super high on there, but after that, Harold Fannin was right in with any of the other guys that you want to name. So
getting back to Terrence Ferguson real quick, me and Will, we both have Terrence Ferguson as our tight end 6. I have him right behind Harold Fannin Jr., which I think is where he belongs compared to Oronde Gadsden, Gunnar Helm, Luke Lackley, and whoever else you want to name among the rookies who are going to be lucky to make the 53-man roster. I think that's where Terrence Ferguson belongs. I do not have much faith in him, but if Sean McVay can make him better than Tyler Higbee, just color me shocked. I don't know what else to say at that point.
Yeah, I'm with you. Do you have a question on, so the other tight end we really wanted to cover today, I think, Mason Taylor. I'm really, really curious about your take on Mason Taylor, because he's one of those guys for me that I look at and doesn't really, I think, fit the mold of what I'm typically looking for in a fantasy tight end. So I'm thinking maybe I just am lower on him from that kind of bias perspective. What's your take on Mason Taylor? Like what are you looking for? What do you like? What do you dislike?
Okay, so just to get the rookie, while we were on the topic of rookie rankings, I want to say for the record that I have Mason Taylor right now as my tight end 3 among all the rookies. He's behind Tyler Ward and Colston Loveland. I have him ahead of Elijah Arroyo, Fannin, and Ferguson. The reason I put him there is because I believe his talent was there. He demonstrated that very well at LSU. He wasn't setting any record-breaking numbers, but he absolutely earned his larger target share his junior year, which was 15.5%. I don't have in front of me what that compares to offhand, as he only got 546 receiving yards, which is not that great after the catch. It's a little shy of 10 yards per reception off of 55 catches, and he also didn't get many red zone looks either, so that's not exactly great. If I'm not mistaken, LSU runs the ball a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think back, the rookie wide receivers this year, I mean, up until last year, he had some competition as well. So I think that's going to be another thing that's going to hold down his production.
Absolutely. So Mason Taylor, I think, is a good project round 2 tight end that the New York Jets very badly need. And to be honest, I mean, aside from like Tyler Conklin, I cannot remember the last great tight end they had on the New York Jets. That's how long it's been.
You don't count Kenny Yeboah?
Yeah, I wish I could count Kenny, but I mean, the Jets killed Kenny. You bastards.
Oh man, solid reference. Yeah, I look at Mason Taylor. He's one of those guys that I wonder if he's too good of a football player to be a good fantasy player. I think I kind of talked about kind of that George Kittle archetype that does everything well, blocks, is physical, still gets out in routes. I view him in that mold. Everything I've heard, super positive about his character, very team oriented. I'm just worried that they're going to need him to do things other than catch passes. At LSU, I mean, I think he was up above 15% for a pass block rate last year. I mean, that's someone who's not necessarily going to be running routes all the time. And in fantasy football, you need the routes to get the targets, to get the catches, to get the yards. So I do think he's a very talented player. I really like the player in and of itself. I just don't know the usage is going to be there from a fantasy perspective of, is he going to be put out in routes as, I know that Jets receiving core, it's Garrett Wilson pretty much. Maybe he becomes the second target, which would be awesome for Mason Taylor. I just don't know if they're going to be able to release him off the line. I think he might end up stuck chipping and, helping out that offensive line, keep Justin Fields from taking all of the sacks that Justin typically has been taking his career. That's my main concern with Mason Taylor. I think he's good enough to succeed. I just don't know that he's going to get the opportunity to succeed for fantasy.
This year is not going to be the year that Mason Taylor breaks out and becomes a stud tight end. That's the one thing I want to make clear. Mason Taylor, to me, is that prototypical tight end who needs 2 seasons to develop and get good. Now, it's also worth noting that he set an LSU record for a tight end with 55 catches, where the only tight end in school history with 100 plus receptions in his career. LSU does not use the tight end. So the fact that he was able to do that in the school that he was playing for is a pretty big accomplishment. He's not the most athletic tight end from a prospective state. He's like 5th in his athleticism score and 6th in his production score. So the production was not quite there, but like you were saying, I think he's going to have to learn the ropes by seeing how well he can block for Justin Fields. And it's also worth noting, Fields and Cole Kmet were like peanut butter and jelly while they were both on the Chicago Bears. Fields loves hitting the tight end when he can. So I think that's going to put Mason Taylor in a great position to succeed if the Jets can figure out their offensive woes. And knowing the team history, it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle, but he doesn't have a lot of competition outside of Garrett Wilson, like you just said.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I hate to say it because I fell for the trap last year. I think Brees might be their number 2 pass catcher. this year.
He's going to have to if they have to check the ball down a lot. And Brees can do it. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. Gosh, last year killed me. Brees was kind of one of my flag plant guys. And then that whole team was just a disaster from the beginning. But yeah, I mean, I would also say I'm so glad you called out the timeline here with Mason Taylor. I think we've kind of mentioned we've been getting very, very spoiled on rookies coming in and performing right away. And I think it's very important to really stay the course, especially with tight ends. There used to be kind of the anecdotal third-year wide receiver breakout. I think more and more lately, people are coming into the league a little bit more polished at the wide receiver position. Tight end is just a whole different animal because you really are asked to do everything on the field. And that's really where I exercise patience as much as I can. Like every once in a while, we'll get a Brock Bowers, who everybody knows is awesome, comes in and is awesome from day one. The vast majority are not like that. A lot of times they need to sit behind people for a year, learn the ropes, learn how to prepare, learn what situations to adjust to. And then from there, you're looking for that big leap from year 1 to year 2. That's kind of showing them putting it together in spurts. And then from year 2 to year 3, that's when you really start seeing the stars be born. Is they take that leap and they continue to grow from year 2 to 3. And then from year 3 on, they're just, that perennial top 10 tight end until they, hit the age cliff and, Father Time takes no prisoners.
That's right. And Mason Taylor right now, I'm looking at this tight end room that's currently on the New York Jets. You mentioned that, yeah, guys like him definitely need to sit behind a veteran to learn how to play tight end in the NFL. Mason Taylor is definitely one of those prospects because his prospect profile with his negatives say that he's just this unpolished route runner, blocker, and he's not the most athletic guy, and that's okay because you don't have to be great out of the gate as a tight end. It's a difficult position that requires you to do a lot like you were just talking about. But who in the hell is Mason Taylor going to sit behind? Stone Smart? Jeremy Ruckert?
Yeah, I mean, I hope he's a self-taught learner. That's my only hope here. He didn't do him any favors with the situation, just like with Terrence Ferguson fell into a good situation. Harold Fannin did not. Mason Taylor's more on that Harold Fannin scale.
I just hope Aaron Glenn hires more of the right coaches for somebody like a Mason Taylor. I know he hired a pretty good offensive coordinator who used to work with Jim Harbaugh at San Diego University. I can't remember the man's name, but I really like that for Breece Hall in the run game because he was also a former running backs coach in college. So he knows how to help guys like Breece Hall. But what this means for the tight end, Mason Taylor will have to learn to block for guys like Breece. But being that he landed on the Jets, I like Mason Taylor a lot as a prospect, but I just don't know if he's going to get there. And I have him as tight end 3 by default just because I don't really like anybody else outside of Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren.
Yeah. I'm with you. I mean, like you kind of pointed out, I have Fannin as my tight end 2. I mean, with the prices that you can pay for Fannin, I'm very happy to kind of sit back and let another tight end come off the board and then just take Fannin early this year. And I'll just sit back and see if he can put his college production to work at the NFL level. I don't know that there's anyone else really this year that looks the part of a true, perennial top 10 tight end. Even after development, I think there's a couple people that have a chance. I just don't, it's what I would call a deep class without a particularly high ceiling.
I completely agree with that. Now, if I can't get a Tyler Warren or a Colston Loveland in a rookie as a rookie tight end in my dynasty draft, I'm looking to, if anybody like a Mason Taylor, an Elijah Arroyo, Harold Fannin, or a Terrence Ferguson falls my way, I'm going to see if I can sell them. I'm going to see if I can trade up if anybody else wants these tight ends. Would you agree with me on that, or do you think I would be overreacting to trying to flip one of those guys?
I don't mind that strategy. I think especially it only takes one person in your league to be a little bit higher on a guy for you to get a return there. So a lot of times that can be a pretty strong strategy. I'm really not sold on a lot of these guys. I was expecting this year's tight end class to score a little bit better in my model than they did. So really, I think that's a pretty good thought process to follow there. Try and make a profit, wait for that. Maybe they flash in week 1 or 2 and you can sell them before we figure out what their true body of work is going to look like. And I'm all for short-term gains in Dynasty. If you can do it, flip them and get the profit.
Absolutely. So we have hit the 30-minute mark, so we're going to start wrapping things up here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in today. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to Fantasy Now Plus as well as the Finns Talk Sports Network. The links are in the description of this video. We hope to see you back on Monday for the flagship show at 12 p.m. Eastern with Justin and Josh to hear all about what to expect from the AFC and NFC West divisions. Will and I will be back next week. Until then, have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you watch or listen to podcasts. We'll be back next week for more ways to win your league.